Hello everyone, welcome to a new chess video. In this video, I'm bringing you 10 great tricks to beat your opponents super fast and leave them with no options at all. So let's quickly start with the first great trick, which happens with the king's pawn. If you like these kinds of videos, don't hesitate to give it a like, because it's the only way I have to know if you like them or not and make more. When they respond with e5, you see the two most popular moves in chess. We're going to take our king's gambit out for a walk. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, the first trap comes from the king's gambit. They take this pawn. Notice that we're giving away a pawn on the second move, but we're going to carry on as if nothing happened. Knight f3, we place the knight here and develop our first piece. If they play d5, which is a supernatural move to destabilize this point here, notice that knight f6 would be a bit of a weak move because we'd be directly kicking out this knight. Maybe it makes more sense to play d5 to fight for the center. So we're not going to capture, instead we're going to play knight c3. Black thinks, okay, I have an extra pawn, so I'll trade pieces and I'll be in a great spot. And now, well, a move like bishop g5 would already leave us with some super nice options to play queen e2. And notice that now we're pointing a laser beam at the king. We're placing the queen, which checks the king, only the knight here stops it. And many people here think, I'm telling you the truth, that many people do the following. Since he moved the queen, I'm going to capture the knight. So he moves the queen again and has lost a tempo. But here, this move exists. Knight f6. Checkmate. Incredible. We give check with the knight and we give check with the queen. Therefore, the king can't go anywhere. Hey, chess teacher, aren't you going to bring the Dutch trick in this compilation of 10 tricks? Obviously, yes. Yeah, it's one of my favorite tricks. I love it. This happened in many games. When they play the Dutch defense, a rare defense that few people know, you simply place the bishop next to the pawn. And now they'll say, well, this move seems very bad. I'll kick out your bishop and you don't have much else to do. Well, now the trick is to place it here. And your opponent will quickly realize that you've lost the bishop with a series of super simple moves. They threaten it with this pawn and now with this one, and notice that this bishop is totally lost. That's why they've already fallen into our trap. We don't care about the bishop, we're simply gonna advance this pawn to e3, and when they take the bishop, we're simply gonna give checkmate with the queen, since this king can't go anywhere, and none of the pieces can cover this check. But you'll tell me, hey, chess teacher, let's see, what happens if my opponent realizes when I do this and doesn't kill the bishop, but instead plays h5, and that way we can no longer do checkmate? Why? Because it's protected by the rook. So absolutely nothing happens, because we're going to play the bishop here, and we're going to threaten this checkmate over here. Notice that it would be exactly the same checkmate. If they take your bishop, we deliver an easy checkmate, right? But of course, you'll tell me, well, then I'll defend with the rook, I'll defend this one, and I'll defend that one. But what happens when an opponent's piece defends 2 points at the same time? That we can deflect the defense. For example, here with queen takes pawn check, a spectacular queen sacrifice. It would be mate if not for the rook, but when it deflects the rook, it'll stop protecting this point, and now our bishop will simply be the king of checkmate. We've won the game in just a few moves. Now, an incredible trap for the French defense. This trap works especially well in fast-paced games. The French defense is this one right here, e4, e6. The most common continuation is d4, and now black will play d5. This is the French defense. There are many types of French, the exchange variation, the advance variation. We're going to play the advance variation. Here's our trap. In the advance French, for those who don't know, the key point is the pawn on d4. That's why black quickly plays c5 to attack this pawn right here. We defend it with the pawn on c3. Look, they attack with a pawn, we defend with a pawn, but our opponent keeps attacking with the knight on c6, keeping the pressure on this point here. That's why we also defend with the knight. But even more, our opponent places the queen on b6, also hitting this point. And this is where we set the spectacular trap for him. We're gonna play our bishop to d3. What is our bishop on d3 doing? It stops defending this pawn with the queen, and look, they're attacking it with one piece, two, and three, and now we're only defending it with two, because we've left this pawn without that third defense, and so our opponent thinks they're going to win the pawn super easily. Simply, with the exchanges, notice that they've won a pawn. Now queen takes knight, and the result is that they've won a pawn. However, there's this spectacular discovered check. Check to the king with the bishop, and on the next move, we're going to take the queen. For example, if they move the king, we take the queen. And if they block with the bishop, well, first we take the bishop giving check, move the king a bit, and now we take this queen completely clean. Hey, chess teacher, I have a friend who always plays the same thing as me. He always copies me. If I play this pawn here, he also plays here. He's mirroring me all the time. Well, I'll show you how to beat him with this trap in a super simple way. We're going to place our knight on f3, attacking his pawn. Oh, he's starting to get a bit too clever, huh? Knight f6 does the same as you and also attacks this pawn. So come on, let's get into the game. We take this pawn, and when he takes ours, look, what we're going to do is a very interesting move like queen e2. This queen is already x-raying his king. Notice that it would be useless to keep copying us because we would take his knight and defend this knight here. Therefore, we would have an extra knight. That's why, once we reach this point, your opponent has to move his knight. And once he moves his knight, now there's this incredible discovery. Knight c6 check with the queen. He can't block with the queen because we'd win the queen. Very juicy. And he can't block with the bishop either, because we'd also win the queen. Very juicy. So whatever he does in this position, we'll win the queen. Come on, what other defense can they play against us? The Scandinavian defense. Oops. Well, I have a spectacular trap here. The Scandinavian defense, notice that it attacks our pawn directly on the first move. So what are we going to do? Well, set a trap here and let him go ahead and take this pawn. Totally for free, yeah. And we also let them attack this knight. I don't know how to talk. Since they're attacking this knight, we're gonna have to move it. And we're gonna move it to this position because that way we attack their pawn again. They have to defend it, and the easiest way to defend is knight f6. They develop a piece towards castling and defend this pawn here, which is the extra pawn they have. So what we're gonna do is exchange this pawn here for their pawn. Now we are attacking it. That's why the simplest thing for our opponent is to capture here. We, importantly, capture with the bishop, and now your opponent has secured an extra pawn. The only thing that bothers him about our position, which is this knight, they might try to kick it out, but this is already a serious mistake. If they don't address the threat and make a move like kicking the knight, they've almost, no, they've lost the game. Because there's this knight sacrifice right here, a spectacular bombshell. Notice that the king must capture it, because if not, look, I attack the queen and I attack the rook. He's gonna lose material no matter what. That's why he has to capture this knight and accept that he's lost material. And it's now where another discovery comes in. Watch the queen, huh? We give up the king here, we give up the bishop here to prevent the king from going back to defend the queen. He has to capture or else move away, and whatever he does, we're gonna capture the queen on the next move. Also, a clean queen in very, very few moves. Since I want you to have traps for every game, come on, let's go. What opening are we missing? Well, we're also missing the Caro-Kann defense. When they play c6. Let's see, chess teacher, is there really a trap against the Caro-Kann? If it's the most solid defense there is? Of course there is. There are traps for everything on this channel. d4. We take advantage, when they don't occupy the center directly, to do it ourselves with our pawns and thus gain a little space. However, the Caro-Kann gives up the center because now it hits it hard, since this pawn supports its central pawn. Simply, we're gonna play knight d2, like a sort of terrace in the French. We play the knight on d2 and defend this pawn here. Notice that if they trade this pawn, we simply take back with the knight. Now the idea is very simple. Black wants to play knight f6, but he doesn't like it much because after the trades, he'll have to double one of these two pawns and the structure will be a bit weak. That's why instead of playing knight f6, he first plays knight d7 to then play knight f6 and have it protected and not have to double pawns. And when we see knight d7, we already play our move queen e2 to put x-rays toward the king. because we already know that when they make this move, they want to play knight f6. And now what we do is, hey, we come over here. Checkmate. We deliver a check with the knight, but the king can't go anywhere because he's trapped by his own pieces, and the pawn can't take thanks to the impressive queen we've placed right here in front to pin it. Is this trap impressive or what? Well, wait, because there are even better ones. What opening do we have left? The terrible Damiano defense. Which one is this? After knight f3, everything's traditional so far, they have to defend this pawn. You already know this move is very normal, defending with a knight. Even this move here is also very normal to defend the pawn, but a terrible one is playing f6 to defend this pawn. This is terrible, and many beginners play it. But here we have the brutal knight sacrifice, knight takes e5, and you're practically winning already. Notice, they capture the knight, it's true, we're down a knight, but too many lines open up toward the king, which we're going to exploit directly first with the queen. We give this check on the diagonal. Notice that many of you will be thinking, well, I'll block with this pawn, then check, and I'm going to take the rook on the next move. Therefore, it's not possible by any means to play this pawn advance. After this check, they'll have to move the king, and this sequence will end in checkmate, most likely. We take this pawn here, check. Notice, the king, the only legal square where he can move is this one here. And then we're going to continue with our checks. Now we bring in the bishop, check. The king can't go back here, but has to go to the side, and we're simply going to corner him, first with the queen, check, and now a discovered check with the bishop. Notice, between this bishop, this queen, and this bishop, we're cornering him. It would be checkmate if not for this pawn. But you simply play h4, and checkmate will be completely inevitable. Notice that the only thing he can do is try to give a check over here. And we simply play c3, the threat remains the same, but we're also attacking this bishop. Notice that the next move could be pawn takes check, it could be bishop takes, for example. Any move, hey, any, even if they try to trade queens. Then we could simply come over here, check. When he moves the king, we could capture the queen and we'd have a completely free extra queen. Here, I'm telling you, he's totally lost. This opening is terrifying. Well, chess teacher, what's up? Do you only have traps for the white pieces or what? You're a racist. Well, no, obviously I'm bringing you a trap with the black pieces too, since I know many of you asked. Look, we're gonna play the double king's pawn, e4, e5, knight f3, and now knight f6. But we're not gonna fall for the trap. Careful, don't fall for the trap that I showed you earlier. When they capture this pawn, don't even think about recapturing here. What you have to do is the following. You'll play knight c6 and set up the spectacular trap. Why? Because after the knight exchanges, notice we're attacking this pawn here with our knight, and they have to defend it. That's why they usually play d3 to defend it very solidly, so that no trap exists. But the trap does exist. We'll improve our bishop by attacking the weak point. You know the weak point is this one here, because it's only defended by the king. So, a very weak point. Watch out! They're coming to attack us with the bishop. Now what happens? This knight can't move. If this knight moves anywhere, they capture our queen and we basically lose the game, right? Well, now what we're gonna do is move the knight. And not only that, but we sacrifice it. Notice that sacrificing it is fine, because if they take it, we take here, and absolutely nothing happens. But of course, you're telling me, chess teacher, did you just hang your queen? Are you really so bad that you're teaching me to hang the queen? What if they take my queen? Then your opponent will simply have to resign after the move bishop takes f2, check. Notice this king can't take because of the knight, it can only move forward. And now we bring the other piece we're missing into the attack, this bishop here, which sits on this diagonal, not just to take the queen, but to deliver checkmate, since this king is run out of squares. We don't need the queen to win the game. I know you hate it when they play the queen's gambit against you. That's why I'm bringing you an incredible trap, as always, to beat the queen's gambit, which is this opening that makes you lose so many games. c4, look, the queen's beheaded. So we're going to throw our opponent off their game right away on the second move. We give away the king's pawn. And not only that, but we give it away by letting them attack this knight. Where are we going to take this knight? There are two traps. The first trap I'm going to show you now is by placing the knight over here. What are we threatening with the knight here? Well, we're threatening to come with the bishop here, supported by this knight that covers these squares, to give a terrible check to the king. But you'll tell me, hey, chess teacher, this is simply stopped with this move and this bishop no longer comes here. It's okay. So we change plans and exchange these pawns here. When they capture, which piece do you have to capture with? Well, with the bishop. There's the trap. And with almost any move, like for example a normal move like knight f3, they've already lost the game. They'll have to resign after this bombshell, knight takes f2, giving away the knight again. They'll have to take it no matter what because we're in the same situation as one of the first traps. We attack the queen and we attack the knight. If they don't take, they'll lose material, and when they take the knight, once again, king deflection, we put the bishop here, check. He can't go back to defend the queen. He can take with the king, with the pawn. He can move the king here or here, but whatever he does, the result will be the same. We'll take the queen for free, and we've beaten the queen's gambit in just a few moves. And to finish the video, and as a final trap, I'll show you a trap where you'll win in just 4 moves. And if your opponent is a beginner, they'll often fall for it. It's when they play this move here, which is very bad, but if you don't know how to take advantage of it, you'll end up exactly the same. So we'll give away this pawn here. Yes, the first move, once again, we give away a pawn. And now what, chess teacher? We're down a pawn. Yes, but now we're going to bring the queen out and give this check here. Check, the king can't go anywhere, they can only attack our queen. And then, quickly, we're gonna make it look a little bit like we're very bad, and we'll give away the queen. And when they capture it, we simply move in with the bishop, checkmate. This king can't go anywhere, and none of the pieces can get in the way of the bishop. I hope you loved this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Don't make me angry, and I'll see you in the next video, friends. Bye.